and then I'm going to send you guys off to practice. And it's actually this thing that's right here. Does anyone know what this is called? This giant thing. Let's see if anyone got it. Layla's not too sure what it's called. Yeah, it's called a mixer. Yeah, John's got it. And imagine it like this. You have all these things that you can plug in. And you guys have figured out you can add all these. You can add 10 drum machines, and all those drum machines will mix together, and you can hear that. Okay, thanks, Alex. I'm recording this right now, so you'll be able to revisit it later. And so you can have 10 things plugged in. Look at all these little tiny in arrows right there. Okay, and then there's all these knobs and faders and stuff. And this is what's called a mixing board or a mixing desk. And I'm just going to do a little Googling here. So we're going to look up mixing desk. We'll just go audio. And we can look up these images really quick. Look at all these. Hey, so a mixing desk is actually like a real thing. Like these are physical mixing boards that are right here. And you can see we have something that's called faders. Those are things that are moving up and down. And there's this one over here. Look at that one. That one's massive. It looks like a Neve console or something. And then we have some digital mixing boards and some analog mixing boards. We haven't talked about what those are. And like these are some serious pieces of equipment. And you can buy a mixing board for $20, or you can buy them for like $500,000. All these different ones, and some of them are more affordable, and the ones that are $500,000 have some special sound to them that makes everything sound better. And by the way, there's careers out there that have to do with these mixing boards, meaning that there's mixing operators, and maybe you've never heard about them before, but they maybe have mixed songs that you have heard about. So I'm going to teach you guys about mixers today, and that's what this little presentation is all about. So here we go. Mixers. So check this out. In a mixer, we have inputs and outputs. Okay. Now, we're using, I guess we're talking about some wrong software here, but an audio tool, that's the spaghetti. Okay. So, the goal is to make kind of all of these knobs make sense. Because once you know kind of like what the plan is, there's kind of a grid formation in these knobs. And once you learn what the grid means, actually all of the knobs kind of make sense. There's a couple in there that are always a little confusing, but, so it's organized into channels and main controls. So these are the channels. Okay. And I'm going to make myself go away here. And those are channels. And these are the main controls over here. Okay. This is just like what's an audio tool, by the way. Okay. And then we have inputs and outputs. Okay. Let's get to the bottom of those. Okay. So what are inputs and what are outputs? Okay. Inputs are anything that generate sound. So an electric guitar can be an input. A microphone can be an input, or this cool DJ guy. He's producing sound. So he would also have input. By the way, like all three of these items could have a microphone or a wire that would go between their, I guess, guitar. The wire could go between the guitar and this input, and the microphone could have a wire. I know there's things called wireless microphones. I'm not going to get into that today. And then the DJ could have a wire that would go into the mixer. And then the output items, like for instance, you could plug in headphones. And when you're doing a mixer, you would plug headphones into it, and that's how it would work. You could also plug in speakers, and you could also plug in a recording device into an output item. So, I guess you can't really see the recording device all that well. So these are kind of things. So, and think about it this way. Input items are things that are generating sound, and output items are things that you're sending sound to. And if you think about it, like headphones and speakers are really the same thing. It's just the speakers inside of headphones are just so much smaller, and because they're closer to your ear. Okay. So input items and output items. And boy, you could come up with all sorts of input items if you're really creative. Basically, any instrument that you could put a microphone on, or that would have like a little plug that you could plug headphones in, could be used as an input item. Okay, so a mixer's inputs are organized in rows. Okay, I'm going to show you that again. Isn't that cool? There we go. So we have all of these things that are up and down this row right here are all the same stuff. So like we have a whole row of all these different things. By the way, way up top there is where you plug in the microphone, and down on the bottom is like, that's where the level is. And so when you start stacking up next to each other, and you can see that like, oh, that's the same thing, right? So once you learn the lineup, it's all the same stuff. And then you can just add on the extra output controls there, and it's a real mixer. All the channels, and we call them channel strips. They're like a strip. And all that stuff is all the same thing. And so I'm going to go up and down this channel strip here in a second, but each strip is repeated for an input. And an input has all these knobs for each strip. So when we talk about a mixer being a 24 input strip, or a 24 input mixer, it actually has 24 of these strips, which all these knobs up and down. And even though there's 24 of them, they're all pretty much the same. Ashton, go get on your call right now. Okay, so let's talk about these the knobs on the channel strip here. Okay, so up at the top here, this is called the input section. And notice that that looks like you could plug stuff into it. Okay, and there's a couple different things there. First of all, there's something that's called an XLR cable. And this is a professional level microphone cable, okay? And that's actually what I have right here. I'm using an XLR. I wonder if I have any handy. I don't think I have any handy. I could go run around my room real quick and pull one out. But an XLR cable has 3 pins, and an X and a left and a right. So it's an XLR cable. Has a protective cover on it. These things are like rock solid bulletproof. And you can use them for years. I've had XLR cables for 20 years now, so they last a long time if you take good care of them. And that's what plugs in right there. It kind of looks like, I don't know, 3 dots. So it fits in. And then we also have something called a phono cable, or a 1/4-inch cable. And I actually have one right here because I use it with my guitar. And it looks like a giant, crazy, I mean, look at that. It looks like a headphone cable, but the reason these are called phono cables, this is how telephones used to operate. Maybe not 100 years ago, but maybe like 60 years ago. This is how, so when they would patch you in, if you wanted to call New York City, they would have these patch cables that were just like this, and they would you would talk to the operator, and the operator would wire you into New York City, and that was all done through these phono cables. And there's also another term for it. This one's a TS cable, but it's tip sleeve. And there's also a TRS, which is a tip ring sleeve. That's actually the example that you can see right behind me, right over here. That's a TRS cable. So, and let's plug in here. By the way, these are really common cables. Like, for instance, a guitar has one of these. And, so I have a hole that's right there on the bottom of my guitar, and that's where it plugs into. But also keyboards. If you have a professional keyboard, it has those. All sorts of equipment have these cables, so you could plug it in. By the way, this is the same ones as amplifier cables. Yeah, it's like for an amp. Very good, Aiden. Yeah. Okay, and then there's like another one. I don't even want to talk about the loop feature. Okay, and then there's something called the gain knob. Okay. Now imagine this. Some signals, I'm sorry that's so grainy, but you'll be fine. Some signals that are coming into the mixer are going to be really quiet. And some are going to be really, really loud. Like imagine that, you know that some people have loud voices. Imagine if you had 2 people talking on stage during an interview, and one person was real quiet and one person was real loud. Well, you could actually use the gain knob and turn the person with the loud voice that was way too loud, and turn them down a little bit, and turn the person with the real quiet voice up, and it would allow the electronics to treat them as if they're the same level. And that's what's really cool about it. You can even think about it with, I don't know, a drummer or something like that. Let's say there's two drummers or two people each playing one drum with a microphone, and one person's playing loud, one person's playing quiet. And you could adjust those so that the electronics would think of them as the same level. Okay. Okay, and then we have something called the equalizer. And maybe I'm sure you guys have seen the equalizer somewhere. It says like high, mid, low. And you could turn those knobs and it would be like you could make things brighter. You could make things darker. You could bring up the low end. You could like do bass boosting. Like I'm sure put yes if you've ever heard of bass boosting before in YouTube videos. Yeah, you've heard of that before. And it's like super funny when the loud part happens, right? Because it's all bass boosted and stuff. Well, that's because they literally took the low knob or the bass knob and turned it up, boosted that. And then we have the pan knob, which is the left and the right, right? We can take something, we can move it to the left and we can move it to the right, okay? And then lastly, we have the fader. And the fader is literally the level, okay? Oftentimes these faders are on wire sliders, meaning like if it's up higher, it's high, and if it's down, it's low. You know, and over here it even says +10 at the top and negative infinity down at the bottom. Okay. And then there's some assigned stuff, and really, I'm not going to get into all the wiring here, and stuff, but I kind of want to give you guys a general overview. Okay. So this is a microphone, much like my microphone that I have here. Okay. The microphone has a cable that's plugged into the first part of my mixer right here, okay? And the sound flows through the gain. I would have to set the gain, EQ things a little bit, make sure that it's on. Sometimes there's on buttons, okay? It gets sent to the main fader, which then out of the main fader, you would plug in other cables, and that would go to some speakers, okay? And then those speakers would obviously point to the audience. But, you know, I kind of wanted to do a different demonstration this morning than what I usually can, because here at home, I have a little tiny mixer to make everything work. So I would like to show you guys how I have my mixer set up here at my home. So let's see if I can get my microphone over a little bit. I can, it's working. Okay. There we go. Hey, so there's my mixer at my house. And if you look really carefully, I'm going to kind of get it up above over here. You can see it has all sorts of spaghetti and wires and stuff like that. And so, sorry, I'm going to have to adjust. Okay. So it's exactly the same thing. So I have a couple different inputs. I have 4 microphone inputs. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is the microphone I'm talking through right now. Okay. Up at the top, I have an XLR cable. That's that one with the green stripe. It's plugged into the microphone input. That little black knob right there, that's the gain. Okay. And then I'm going to turn the gain. By the way, this is an example, so things are going to get louder and softer. If I turn the gain down, I'm going to go disappear. You can barely even hear me. And if I turn the gain up, I turn it up, I turn it up, I turn it up, and then all of a sudden, you know, maybe I'm too loud now, but I'm going to turn it back to about where it was, 12 o'clock. Okay, so I guess 11:30 there. So that's the gain. And then right here I have, they're hard to see in terms of color, but they have little blue tops for these. I have 3. That's the EQ section. And just a reminder, the EQ is like the bass boosted. So I'm going to bass boost me right now. I'm going to go to the low and I'm going to bass boost. Bass boost, bass boost, bass boost. Oh yeah, now I have like a huge amount of bass, low frequencies. You can hear it's almost feeding back in my room because I have this going over the speakers. And then I can also cut the bass too. I can also turn down the bass. And now I sound like, you know, I don't have any low end at all. I sound like I'm talking through a tiny little telephone. So that's a good indicator. Okay, I'm going to bring that back to normal. Now I'm going to bring up the highs. Highs are high frequencies. Frequencies are like little high things. Okay, so then I'm going to turn up the highs. Hey, my speakers didn't like that. And even with me having it turned up this much, it sounds like I'm super crispy. Sounds like I'm deep fried and everything's about to start squealing a little bit. So obviously high frequencies would be helpful to turn up for something like hi-hats, but we really try to not turn up anything. And if I turn down my high frequencies, it sounds like I'm dull. And I've turned that down. And that's how an EQ works. Of course, mids. Hey, are you on your call?
Can you help me?
Huh?
The call got deleted. It kicked me off.
It kicked you off?
No, it kicked me off and deleted the thing. Can you help me?
Yeah. All right. All right, guys, everyone take a 2-minute break. I have to be back. It just like kicked you off altogether. All right. Sorry, everybody, I'm back. Where were we? Oh, yeah, we're on the mids. Okay, so we're back over to the mids now. And that's the middle knob. So if I turn that up, by the way, the mids are where our voice frequencies are. So my voices can become extra prominent when I turn that up. And then I turn it back down, and it's going to become kind of like, you can still hear the highs and the lows, but it's like I'm what's called scooped there in the middle. And so that's how I use that. And then, of course, this red one right here, that's the pan. No, that's the effects level. I don't want to talk about that. This one right here, this black one's the pan. Pan is really helpful. And if you guys are on headphones, you'll be able to hear this. Although I think that knob's a little dirty. Turn it, and I'll go to one side, and then I'll go to the other side. See, I can send it to the right, or I can send it to the left. Right, left, and it's like I'm in stereo moving back and forth. Whoa, that's super wild. So I can create like these nice stereo levels. Last one here down at the bottom. This is an example of ones that were on the slide wire. You can move up and down, but this is just a knob. It's really the same thing, and this is a level up and down, so I can turn it down. You couldn't hear me there because I had it turned all the way down. And then I can turn it up a little bit higher. This is my main level. So all these pool up all together over to my main level, right over here. And then obviously this is doing the same sort of thing. I can slide it up to go louder, slide it down to go a little bit more quiet. Okay, now I want to point out that 1, 2, 3, 4, if you look here, they all have the same knobs. They're all the same thing, really. So I could plug in 4 microphones into this, and they would all do the same stuff. So all the same electronics, and if I could, turn them all on, and, I don't know why that was on. And notice here that I have my level down on the one that's the guitar. My number 2 is the guitar here. Anyone want to guess why I have my guitar turned down? Anyone want to guess? Why does Mr. Dean have his channel 2, the guitar channel, turned down? Yeah, if I bump it, it won't be too loud. Oh, John figured it out. Because I'm not playing it right now. And the idea is I'm not playing it, and so I have this loose cable. Like usually I could plug this in. You know what I mean? I could plug this in, and it would. But if I had this on, I'm going to turn it up. And you can hear a little tiny buzz. I'll turn it up more. You guys hear that? That's the buzz that's coming from literally the cable itself. It's because it's not plugged in all the way. And here's the second problem. So I have it turned on right now. If I accidentally tap it on something, it'll like make sound. That won't happen if it's plugged in and I'm playing it, or at least you won't notice all that stuff. But all this electrical noise, like I don't want to have that going on all the time. And so if I turn it down, it's not even there. It's like, we would call that cold. Okay. And that's how a mixer works. And you might be wondering, Mr. Dean, what does this have to do with anything we're doing in class? Well, first of all, as a guitar player, right? As a guitar player, if you ever want to do something that's electric, you're going to have to learn how to plug things in. And if you haven't figured out, Mr. Dean's really good at getting all the wires ready and plugging those in. And we also have a virtual mixer that's inside of Audio Tool. And you guys know this, like you've seen this before, but you might not have figured out what it is. So I'm going to kind of zoom in here. Now I want to point out that the colors are going to be different, but the function is going to be the same. And look at this. I zoom in and I have all these channels that are numbered. Top one is gain. Then we have an EQ, high, mid, low. We have pan. And then we have a fader that moves up and down. Okay. Now there's two other buttons I haven't really talked about. Okay. That's M and that's S. Okay. Mute. Can anyone tell me what mute means? Sometimes somebody may have a problem with their voice and they might be mute. Yeah, killing the sound, stops the sound, makes it quiet. Perfect. There's I think it was a really old term for if like a person permanently lost their voice, then they were mute. And so a mute is like a little button here, meaning that if there's something that's going on in your mix and you don't want it to happen, you press mute. Okay. Second one next to it is solo. Can anyone tell me what solo is? Go ahead and put it in the chat box. Anyone guess what solo is? Yeah, it's by yourself. Like, yeah, guys, I'm cruising solo tonight. Means it only plays that sound. John, you got it. Alone, Mia, that's perfect. It's alone or by itself. And this is a really great feature in the mixing thing. So let's say if you had 10 things, you had synthesizers and stuff, and you're like, man, I can't focus. There's all these things. I just want to hear this little part of it. You could go to the mixing board and you could press solo and you would just hear that part. Or if there's one part that was like, okay, I just need to mute this. You would mute it and then that part would go away. So, our time, looks like we have 13 minutes left in class. I'm going to start my demonstration of how this is going to work right now. But if you guys want to just go do it on your own, that's cool. Feel free to hop off the call at any time. But I'm going to continue my demonstration of how to use a mixer in the basic way. And I'm going to add a quick drum machine. Okay. I'm going to have that go. Why do I not hear anything? I didn't have one of my things plugged in. Okay, so there's my drum machine. And let's take a look at the mixer up here. Hey! So this is a mixer that you can see level. Okay, and I'm going to click mute. And just like you guys talked about, it goes away. And it looks like they even made the levels a little grayer so that I would know that it was muted. That's kind of a nice little thing. I go up over here. I can turn up the highs. Ooh, bring up those high frequencies. Turn the highs down. That's the Justin Bieber way. That's a very modern thing to do right now is turn down the highs. I could bass boost it. Kind of get that zappy sound in it. But I think this is much, much, much more interesting when you have multiple things going. I really haven't shown you guys much of this, but here's like a... So now I have two elements going. Yeah. Notice I have my drum machine on channel 1, and I have my second thing on channel 2. So we can use our solo now. Now we have two I can actually help. So now if I press solo, we just hear channel 2. We can mute channel 2. Or we can solo up channel 1. And there we go. This is how this all kind of works. We can also go to our EQs. Maybe I want a bass boost, and I want to turn up the highs on my twinklies. Or I could pan these too. Ooh, that's a fun one. I'm going to put my drums on one side. And then I'm going to put my twinklies on the other side. That's kind of an odd combination. If you're wearing headphones, this will probably make a lot more sense. And hey, you can even see this inside of the little meters over here. Look at this. It says this one's over on this side and this one's not playing through one channel. And you have these controls on every single channel. And right here, this is your main outputs. You know, I kind of noticed that this one keeps on hitting a little red dot. I'm going to turn that one down. You might be wondering, Mr. Dean, like, why does it look like it's so loud, but it's not actually loud? Well, that's because of those low frequencies. They kind of mess up everything. Kind of a fun way you can get different sounds out of things. All right, guys. Well, that's the end of class for today. I hope you guys learned a little something about mixing. We might review this a little bit, but we'll be doing some more about mixing on Wednesday. Please practice hard. Go work hard on your guitar stuff.